Good evening, Gabby.
Good evening, TC, and welcome all to not our regular podcast, The Curran View, but Curran 79, where Terry and I are going to take a trip down memory lane and revisit an iconic season or year in Terry's career. TC, it began at Southampton, so let the story begin, sir.
It was a funny year really, because Maurice Setters, who was assistant manager to Jack Charlton, knew I was a Sheffield Wednesday fan, and he asked me to come and join Jack and turn the club around. Possibly could make Jack and myself Sheffield Wednesday legends. Would many people drop down two leagues? Not really, but the temptation was too exciting to not to go there, because to take Sheffield Wednesday back into the first division, that's what I aimed for. And we only just missed out on it. I said to Jack, I said to Morris, pair of them, I met him in the nightclub in Cinderella, Rockefellers, in 1979, after the first leg of the League Cup semi-final, and I told them both that I would join, but they may have to wait till after the cup final. They didn't expect Southampton getting there, because obviously Leeds played well that night. I mean, we got a lucky draw, but I thought we were better in the second half than the first half. And then I got the winner in the Dell. And really, that same year, 79, we got to the quarter-finals of the FA Cup.
Yes, yep.
And if we'd have got into the semi-final, I would have waited until after the FA Cup final.
Your first game that you played in 1979 was an FA Cup game. It was against Wimbledon. Is that where the infamous story comes from? And we're not going to get into that story. But you played Wimbledon and you knocked them out of the FA Cup. You beat them 2-0 away from home.
But that wasn't my first game, though, was it? Or is that what you mean?
No,
the
of
FA
1979. The first game in 1979 you played was Wimbledon away in the FA Cup.
FA Cup.
The second game that you played that year, 1979, was Wolves away. You got beat 2-0 in Division 1. And then you played those two League Cup semi-finals. First leg on the 24th of the first, and then 6 days later at the Dell, you got a 2-2 draw away, as you've alluded to. How you got a 2-2 draw, Lord only knows, because the other TC, had a fantastic night. And then you did score the winner at the Dell, which will always put you down as a legend in the folklore of Southampton Football Club.
Well, it took him to another cup final.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the first one was the FA Cup, and then the second one was the League Cup final.
Yeah.
And was winning 1-0 in the first half. Could have got a couple more. Then we lost it for a little bit, and then Southampton then Scots Forest came back and went 3-1 up. We pulled one back to make it 3-2, but all in all, Forest deserved the win. But yeah, it was a funny time with Wimbledon, like Luton and Leeds. I've always played well against Leeds, even for Huddersfield and other teams when we played Leeds and that, So Wimbledon, as you know, were the most dirtiest team.
Yes.
I have seen. They're going about Leeds United, but Wimbledon was the most dirtiest team I had seen or played against. But I had some shenanigans with not only with the players, but some of the one of the girlfriends or the wife of one of the players down at Wimbledon. I don't want to go too much deep into it.
Again, no, we will steer clear of going too far or deep inside a Wimbledon player's girlfriend. In 1979, there was 18 number ones. Village People were the first. It was a hangover from 1978. And we're going to be talking later about the song that was number one on the day that you demolished, or your team Sheffield Wednesday demolished Sheffield United. But that's a little bit later in the podcast. Some things that also happened in 1979. Thatcher is elected Prime Minister. Russia invade Afghanistan. Sony released the Walkman, and Mountbatten and 3 others were assassinated. We'll go on to another load of political situations that happened in 1979 a little bit later. Oh, and by the way, inflation was 17% in those days, and a gallon of petrol was 79 pence. Yeah. I mean, how times change, but in terms of countries invading countries, that doesn't seem to change much.
No.
You played against Derby in the league, Ipswich Town, and then you had a tricky tie on paper in the FA Cup for Southampton, away against Preston North End. Have you any memories about that 1-0 win there at Deepdale?
Well, after the semi-final at Leeds,
Yeah.
we travelled up to Blackpool,
right,
to play Preston on the Saturday in the FA Cup. I remember it was such a late night that night, getting through to the or getting a great result at Leeds, and if we could beat Leeds at the Dell, then we'd be playing at Wembley. So one or two of the lads were still having a few drinks on the bus all the way up, but there was plenty of snow around at that time. Leeds had got undersoil heating, so that did help to keep the game on. So we travelled up to Blackpool the following day to stay overnight. I remember Paulie saying, "Come on, we'll go down and see Brian London." I said, "No," I said, "We've got a game tomorrow. I don't want to be going out." I was still only a young lad. I mean, Baldy was coming to the end of his career. But he climbed down the drain pipe and he went out. And he said the game would be off. As it happens, the game was off. So we missed out. Well, we didn't play on the Saturday, and one or two of the lads, because some funny shenanigans at Blackpool. I remember West Ham players getting sent home from Blackpool from being from a night out. Bobby Morgan, Jimmy Greaves, and all those players. So anyway, we didn't play on that Saturday. Then we played the rearranged game, and again, but another tricky game. Always going to be an hard game because Preston were always a difficult team to play against. But we managed to get through, and it was a great result for us.
Fantastic.
I mean, really, it took me 14 months really to get over the injury I had at Forest. And I was just starting to play well. I mean, you talk about Wolves, but we beat Wolves. 3-1, 3-2 at our place. We beat Everton. And I got matching both those two games. I really just started to play really, really well again. Yeah. So was it a good decision for me to leave First Division? Not career-wise. If you're going to achieve, I would have had a better chance playing for England by staying at Southampton than dropping down to the Third Division. But it was something I wanted to do at some point in my career, so I thought, why not now?
Absolutely. And after Preston North End, you played Everton, one of your former clubs, and you beat them 3-0 in the league. Bristol City at home, another 2-0. Again, away at QPR, another win. Southampton were on a real good winning streak. You even taught Arsenal a new one, 2-0 at home at the Dell against Arsenal in the league, which set up a lovely encounter at the Hawthorns in the FA Cup for Southampton, and you drew 1-1. Do you remember much about that winning run and what the attitude of the Southampton players was like going into the FA Cup? Surely you must have been on cloud nine.
We'd had it. Southampton, as you know, have been renowned for producing some good quality young players. And back then, when I was playing, players that were breaking through then. I mean, he'd established himself then. Stevie Williams, great player, went on to play for Arsenal, played for England. But we had a kid called Graham Baker. I think they sold for £350,000 to Manchester City. And a guy called Trevor Hubbard, quality player. We had a little striker, or two little strikers really, Tony Seeley and Austin Hayes. Both those two have passed away. over the, well, I think it was about 5 or 6 years, maybe 10 years ago, something like that now. But just saying then, we were on such a good run. I mean, Ball, obviously, one of the great midfield players of our country, and won a World Cup. Not only that, I think he won a league title. He won a
Yeah,
no, he
everything.
didn't win an FA Cup with Arsenal. I don't think he did really.
No,
I think he just missed out on it. But
Leeds beat them in the
it,
final.
I, I think Laurie would. Regardless what I say or anybody else says, he done great for Southampton.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
He's terrific for Southampton. And not only that, he played some good football. He brought people like Shilton in there, Charlie George in there, Ball, as I said, Ted McDoodle, Frank Worthington. Frank got to a semi-final with him. Um, and if Laurie is stuck, with that group of young players, we've got a defender there called Malcolm Walton, lightning quick, and I mean lightning quick. And if he'd have played Trevor Hubbard and Graham Baker together in midfield and took that little bit more risk and believed in them too, I think that team could have been a very, very, very good team. Because like I said, it were producing good players, and we were really. He didn't want to sell me at the death, but I forced the move because, like you just said there, we beat Arsenal 2-0, we beat Everton 3-0, we beat Wolves 3-2. And I was really, really starting to get back like I was at Forest. When I look at it, I mean, it did take a little bit of the pace off me from when I was at Forest, the injury I got. And like I said, it took me 14 months to get over it. But the atmosphere, and I mean, it was a good bunch of lads. David Peach, we got a Yugoslav in Ivan Golak,
Yep.
Terry Geno, goalkeeper, Peachy, great penalty taker as well as being a good fullback. We got the deadly duo of Phil Boyd and Ted McDoodle. We had a good quality midfield player in Nick Holmes, always reliable. And now we just, like I said, just started to play well. Steve Williams, like I said, had already broke into the team and was a regular in the team, and were getting talked about going to bigger clubs, and finished up going to Arsenal. So yeah, if he could have kept us all together, who knows? Southampton might have had a good run like they did under Keegan. I mean, I think they finished second that year when Keegan joined them. But man, he's always did well for Southampton.
I think he'd done brilliant as well in terms of recruiting big name players to Southampton. It's something that you could argue that they haven't really done since Laurie, but Laurie really was a dab hand at being able to get them players at the Dell. That game against West Bromwich Albion in the FA Cup, both teams riding high. The Albion in 1979 were a terrific football club.
Great team.
I mean, they almost won the league. I think it was only that because it was as well. I've got noted down here in my notes. It was the winter of discontent. So it was that year that we had a big freeze, and because Liverpool had undersoil eating and West Bromwich Albion didn't, I think their first game back was at Anfield and they got beaten. Then they had a little bit of a stumble. But Big Ron said to me, had they have not had that winter of discontent, that possibly, and both on and off the pitch with freezing cold temperatures, the Albion would have gone on and won the league. So playing them, you was playing a great West Bromwich Albion team in the
Well,
FA Cup.
we beat them in extra time in the League Cup quarter-finals. Did you
Right?
know that?
No, again that would have been 1978, wouldn't it? So that
No. No.
no, you played the semi-final in January, so it would have been the previous. It was the same season, but it would have been the previous year because we're just focusing on 1979 as a year, not the 78, 79
When
as a
did I
season.
join Southampton? Well, it must have been late '78 then.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, Steve, what we're doing is focusing on the year, not the season. So, yeah, you did beat West Bromwich Albion in the League Cup, but it would have been earlier in the season. So, therefore, it would have been in
Seven.
1978
Not 79.
No,
Right,
not
right.
it would be in the same season, but not in the year that we're going to be focusing on.
Because when you were doing about, because I remember we beat them. I think it was in extra time, but obviously that was 78. But going back, they were a good team, like you
Yeah, they
said, a
were.
very very good team. You know, um, Gary Owen were playing for them. I'm sure he was. But Peter Barnes, uh, fullback Derek Statham, and I know Derek didn't like playing against me because obviously I was one of those players. Even if I lost it, I would always go back. And if they kicked me, I'd always go back.
Yeah.
You know, and I always try to tell Jock this the same thing: run at people with pace, and that's what defenders do not like.
Yeah.
Not even defenders, even managers didn't like. Because you're going to put pressure on their team. But again, another great team, and under Ron Atkinson, they were a great team and came so close to winning the title, like you said. Probably favoured Liverpool with him having that under soil eating, obviously being the bigger club and having the experience of winning trophies over the years. So it didn't work in their favour, having the freeze and then missing games. And then what happens then? You accumulate games and you play too many games in such a short space of time. And it just takes
Absolutely.
it out of you, regardless what people think. It
So
just takes it out of you.
it has to tell you. So you could say with the Albion beating them in the League Cup and knocking them out the FA Cup, it was a bit of a tragedy that they drew you again in the cup competition. Now, coincidentally, the Bee Gees tragedy was number one when you did knock out
Staying alive.
West Bromwich Albion, and I Will Survive was number one when you played the final game, the game after that wonderful replay against West Bromwich Albion at the Dell. 5 days later, you took on Nottingham Forest, your old club at Wembley, Brian Clough and all. Two great teams going head to head. Southampton were a match for any side that season. But playing against your old team at Wembley must have been, well, you explain, what's it like playing against your old team?
Well, I keep telling people, Clough tried to sign me 4 times altogether when I left Forest. I remember when we got to Wembley, many people always, I've got a photograph of walking around pitch with me. He always wanted to be at the side of me. He didn't want Cloughy to get to me and trying to put me off.
Yeah.
But nothing put me off. I mean, Clough was trying to say hello to me and wishing me all the best and that type of thing. But Laurie was trying to keep him away from me. Great to see me, obviously, my ex-teammates playing against them. But with me, with football, choose who it is. Whether if I never played against Sheffield Wednesday, but whoever it was playing against, I always give my best. And I wanted to beat Forest, not because I wanted to beat them for the sake of beating them. I just wanted to win the cup final.
Yeah.
But it was a great occasion, great for it to play at Wembley because every kid dreams, or back in my day, dreamt of playing at Wembley. And like I say, there were a couple of bad errors, what cost us really. And then we did get back into the game, but we were 3-1 down then. Had they taken the foot off the ball? You never know. But at the end of the day, it was a good cup final. There were plenty of snow on the pitch on the Friday, which it cleared off on the what is that? This would have been Saturday. Didn't play football.
Yeah, it would have been a
nowadays.
Saturday in them days, I would have thought, yeah.
But we could have gone at half time 2 or 3 up. We could have done. But again, Forest turned it on for 20 minutes, and in that 20 minutes, they really put us under pressure, and we made 3 mistakes. Because when you look at the goals itself, they weren't great goals. They were great for Forest, but they weren't from our defensive point of view. They weren't that good.
I mean, we had started playing football on a Sunday, but I do think it was a Saturday kick-off. And in my notes here, I've made a schoolboy error. I've put Notts Forest. It is, of course, Nottingham Forest. And
Well,
the Nottingham
the
Forest
fans
fans,
go bam if you call them not. Yeah.
Oh, don't they just? So you got beat to Nottingham Forest at Wembley. Borley, because you didn't have medals in those days, you was given tankards, and Borley put a lump of grass, didn't they, in your
No,
your tankard?
you got a little medal.
Oh, okay.
You got a medal and a tankard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a medal and a tankard. That's what you got. Yeah.
And
Remember that? Yeah.
And
And what
Borley.
coming off the pitch. I don't know because I don't know where Bally were, but I'd come off, and then he'd come into the dressing room. He'd got some turf,
Yeah.
Wembley turf, and he put it into my tankard, and he said to me, "Keep that because you may never play at Wembley again, unless you're lucky enough to go and play for England." And I put that turf in my garden when I lived in East Lee in when I was playing for Southampton.
Yeah.
I dug it up when I came to Sheffield Wednesday, and I lived on Wheatshaw Lane in Cudworth, and I put it in the garden. And I don't know if it's still there today, unless it's been, turf's been returfed and what have you. But I did bring it back up with me and put it in the garden up at my house at Wheatshaw Lane in Cudworth.
Imagine that, living in that house, looking out the back garden, and not realising that some of that grass there, some of that turf, was from Wembley Stadium.
It wasn't, as it happens, it was in the front garden.
Oh, the front garden, was it?
Yeah,
Oh,
it was in the front garden. Yeah, I put it in the front garden because obviously, always more than not, you're looking out through the front window. So I put it in the front garden. But that's a true story.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you see it on Thing Ball. He got the grass piece of turf in his hand, and he fetched it into the dressing room. Nobody else would give it to me. He said, "Put that in your." But we became very, very good friends, me and Bally at Southampton.
He was a character, wasn't he? Great player as well.
He begged me not to leave.
And a great one-touch player as well, wasn't he? Bally.
Oh, what was he? 31, 32, 33, and to see that one-touch football from him, how he moved it quick, made angles, fabulous, absolutely fabulous guy, right down to earth and all. Came from a similar background to me.
Yeah.
No airs and grace on him, and he just loved people. He did love people.
He didn't love Arsenal, though. He left Arsenal. You played Arsenal on the 19th of March, FA Cup 6th round. You drew 1-1 at the Dell, and then they took you back to Highbury and beat you 2-0. Did you play in both of those games? No.
I'll tell you what happened in those two games.
Yeah.
Can you remember the Dell?
Yeah,
all the fans won't remember the Dell.
Mm.
When you came out at the corner at the bottom end of the ground. So that's with the goal. That's with the Teddy Price. What's his second name? He'll come to me in a bit. It'll come to me.
Dave Price.
Player, what was his?
Dave Price. Was it Price? Dave Price.
Yeah. Terry Geno had come to the near post. I don't know who it were, but Geno clips the ball onto the crossbar. 11 times out of 10, that drops over the goals.
Yep.
It ran across the crossbar, drops this side of the goal, and Dave Price put equalise. I think it's about 80th minute. That, if you check that up, I'm not far wrong.
Yeah.
About 80th minute. And then I don't know why he left me out in the replay. I hadn't got a clue why he left me out, but I knew there was something going off because Bally pulled me. He said, "Listen, I've seen Alan Hinton here, and Alan Hinton's been asking me about you." He said, "You don't be going to America at your age, right?" And so I met Alan Hinton in Bally's room, and they were trying to get me to go to America. McMenemy had agreed a fee. I mean, I always put it down to Bally that because McMenemy didn't like me being with Bally. And then he changed his mind. For some unknown reason, he changed his mind and he offered me a 3-year contract. But we go to Highbury and we get beat 4-1.
2-0.
Was it 2-0? Are you sure?
Yeah, that's what it's got down there, yeah.
In the replay?
Yeah, got beat 2-0 in the replay.
I thought we got beat 4-1 there. I'm sure he played Manny Anuzeski to mark Liam Brady and left me out.
Right. So it was tactical. Yeah.
Yeah,
He went
he tried
tactical.
to. He was concerned about Liam Brady.
Yeah.
I mean, he did that with Manny with it when we played Leeds with Tony Curry. I think that was in the league game. Trevor Francis, I think he at Birmingham. No, he can't have been. He'd gone to Forest then.
He would have. He left. Trevor left Birmingham in the February of 1979. So
Yeah,
earlier in that season, you would have played Birmingham. Yeah.
yeah. Well, he played when he played Dib to mark him out at game. I
Mm.
mean, I played in them. I played in those games. It
Yeah.
was just that Arsenal game. I don't know whether it was because of that, because we didn't. They were so unlucky to get a draw at our place. You know,
Mm.
it's just one of those games. And Arsenal went on to beat Man United 3-2
Yes, they did.
in the final. No, yeah, 3-2.
3-2. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I think Man United came back. Alan Sunderland scored the winner.
Yes, he did. It was a great cross by Graham Ricks.
Ricks, that's right.
Gary Bailey just couldn't get his fingers to it, and Alan Sunderland slid the winner in. It was a 5-minute final, wasn't it? The game itself wasn't particularly good, but the ending of the FA Cup final in 1979 was fantastic. Was you into movies, TC, in those days? Was you into the films?
Yeah, I used to go to, a lot of footballers did.
Yeah.
The Thursday, Friday night, you go to a film and then back home, put your feet up. Yes, I was into films in those days. Yeah,
What else was you into in those days as a young? How old were you? Did you say you were about 24, wasn't you, that season?
23, I think,
Yeah.
something like that.
Mm.
23. I remember meeting Oliver Tobias. He was in those John
Yeah.
Collins films.
The bitch
In,
and the
in,
stud.
in Tramp, yeah, the bitch and all that. I
Yeah.
remember meeting him down in Tramps with Borley. Um, I was what was it? Clint Eastwood fan.
Got ya?
You
Yeah.
know, but Bond. I like obviously Bond, what have you. Um, but also it's music. Like anybody, like any young lad. You know, I like horse racing because I go horse racing with Borley. So yeah, like any normal young lad into music and into films.
Superman the movie come out in 1979, as did Rocky 2, Alien, Kramer versus Kramer, and The Deer Hunter.
Two great films. I weren't into Superman. I think these Supermans are a lot better than the old Supermans.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
must admit I've never been into that
Kramer versus
comics.
Kramer. That was a great film. And Deer Hunter, De Niro. I think that really elevated his career, didn't it?
Again, I'm not sure with films. I'm not big on my films, but it was a big move that took you from the first division to the third division. Terry Connor, flipping heck, I can't get my word out. TC arrived on the 1st of April 1979. But your new teammates, there wasn't on a particularly good run. They'd played Exeter City, drawed 2-2. They beat Peterborough 3-0, and then they got beat by Watford. And I think your first game then would have been Mansfield, wasn't it? Did you come on a sub against Mansfield in a 2-1 home defeat?
No, I came on a sub at Watford.
Right, okay.
Came on a sub at Watford. I'd signed on the Thursday,
Got ya.
late Thursday night.
Yeah.
Well, it's a late Thursday night, 5 o'clock. The deadline's on. That's when the deadline's finished back in my day.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
First game was Mansfield. I'm sure that was a cup game. I
I've got
think
it here
about
as a
10.
league game.
Was it a league game?
I've got it down as a league game, yeah.
About 10,000 people there, I think, something like that. 12,000 people.
Yeah.
So it just shows you how Sheffield Wednesday dropped down into third division, and the gates had dropped appallingly. But they just had a good cup run prior to that. With Arsenal,
They had a mammoth FA Cup run
five
with
games.
Arsenal. I know I mean, I remember as a kid, unbelievable. I mean, it was all the pictures and stuff were in the Shoot magazine. Did you used to buy Shoot magazine, by the way, too? Because you were in it
Yes,
quite a bit in them days, and Goal.
yeah, I was in it a lot.
Yeah, you
Shoot
were.
magazine. I used to nearly get that man of the month award. For third division player.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got loads of those. the match. I remember the game being on television, fans throwing snowballs at Jack cleaning pictures, made me laugh at times at Jack. But yeah, there were great games. I went to the replay at Leicester.
And to listen to the rest of this podcast, head on over to www.patreon.com/SRB Media. Thank you.